Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the showdown between Slaanesh and Khorne. It's going to be myself with Azazel facing off against Professor Pone, who's going to be rocking Scarbrand, and ladies and gentlemen, we are going to be using a demon-only build. So our entire roster, everything that we're bringing to battle is going to be demonic. So we have the basic demonettes, we have the exalted demonettes, including the bringers of beguilement. In reserves, we have seekers, we also have a fancy chariot, we have the hellflayer, and a bunch of other demon units. So I just kind of want to test some of these things. I find it's a good way to learn new tricks and kind of new strategies that can potentially be good, is to kind of restrain from using some of the more meta stuff and just get wild with experiments. And that's what we're going to be doing here today. So Azazel's also going to be up here in the sky, and he's a character I don't use terribly often. However, he does have some pretty decent tools. Firstly, he is a Slaanesh caster, which is very nice because they have one of the better lore passives in the entire game, which is the Blissful Rapture. So every time you cast a spell, your whole army for 10 seconds is going to be getting a nice melee attack buff, which is super strong on hard-hitting units like Demonettes. On top of that, we do have Hysterical Frenzy, Lash of Slaanesh, and Acquiescence. So the Lash, you just kind of whip units. Acquiescence, you debuff their melee defense. And then Hysterical Frenzy is a super powerful spell. So you basically use this. It gives plus 40 melee attack, armor piercing. It does rampage your own unit, but if you have like a super elite unit like an Exalted Demonette grinding in an important fight, giving them 40 melee attack is going to make them into the ultimate grinding unit. They'll go up to 90 melee attack, and it's pretty nuts. So that's the plan. He does also have a couple cool abilities. He has the Arch Tempter, I believe is what it's called. Yeah, he's got Tempter here, which gives himself and nearby units ward save, so in blob fights is pretty good. And he does have the Demon Blade, which I like quite a bit. When you hit somebody with this, it lowers their leadership by 16, which if your opponent's like on the cusp of breaking, or let's say you're facing demon or undead units, you can get them to crumble and disintegrate really quickly. So I think it's worth bringing, worth trying for sure. Now for Pone's army, he did not know what I was doing, so he's coming in with Scarbrand here. Scarbrand is great, you know, he can rampage targets, and if I had gone with the traditional kind of mouth-breathing Hell Scourge with Sigvald build, Scarbrand would be really good, right? He's excellent against all those targets, but against his demon build, he might not be as good, that's for sure. So Chaos Warriors with dual weapons, and it is going to be some Marauders of Khorne on the flanks and double Cultists on the ground. So fairly standard stuff. Scarbrand double Cultist is like a very good template. Now, if you're playing a faction with excellent shooting, it can be a little bit dodgy, but for the most part, you know, it's a nice little strategy here. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be sending one Demonette up to the high ground. Remember, we have 54 movement speed on all of our units, basically. They're really, really fast. The Khorne Warriors are sitting at 24, so we have like almost double their movement speed, and we can really use that maneuverability to our advantage here. So my overall game plan and my strategy in my head going into it was to essentially pressure Objective 2 out of the gates, make him assemble his much slower forces here, and then send some of my elite ones, the Bringers of Beguilement, over to Objective 3 and do a full rotation and do snares and try and pick things off in transit. That's going to be the game plan here. So we're going to do some fast forwarding. You notice I am banking resources. I'm saving up for the Marquis of Masochism, the Arwar Keeper of Secrets, which is pretty good. It does have a snare ability, which makes it useful in some ways, right? So here we do get the Bringers of Beguilement getting in against the Chaos Warriors. We use Acquiescence. Their melee defense is 9, so I do take some damage on impact because Khorne Warriors are no joke. But we're going to just punish them super hard. You can see their HP is just dropping super quickly, just very nasty. Azazel comes in as well. And the Marquis of Masochism, you know, we expect a rotation here, right? But what we're going to be using is the nice snare ability. So it does have Phantasmagoria. So Scarbrand gets snared, it tanks leadership in nearby units. That means that these Khornate Warriors here are probably going to be getting wrecked pretty good. Lash of Slaanesh going down as well. They're nice and snared, and now we flank them with another Exalted Demonette unit. So it's about to get real crazy here. Scarbrand looks like he did use his Rampage ability. He's nice and angry, but we're more than happy to take this grind. The Exalted Demonettes, the Bringers of Beguilement, did just massacre those Chaos Warriors, also basically killing these Marauders, and these Marauders probably up to about 800 value so far. Yeah, very good stuff. And here is going to be the Hysterical Frenzy. So this power combo is really good. 105 melee attack with the Lash of Slaanesh. Just brutal stuff. And the entire time, we're basically just not engaging on the other side. He had a big force over here, but they're all very slow, so I'm just sitting back. I'm like just waiting for them to move so I can strike, because I know this flank engagement's going pretty well. Now, it looks like Scarbrand's going to be eyeing my big demon. The Marquis of Masochism is a very good fighter, but in a straight-up duel, Scarbrand would for sure win that. But, you know, Slaanesh isn't going to be fighting fair. One's going to be going in from the front, the other one from the back, perhaps. So we do have Azazel coming in, and we are going to be trying to 2v1 here. As you can see, Acquiescence and Enfeebling Foe going down on this unit. Meanwhile, the Exalted Demonette's pouring in with Hysterical Frenzy with 93. That one lasts a really long time, but now we have a very scary 2v1. And the Bringers of Beguilement, even though they barely have any models left, they have been the doom of so many legendary lords in this game. So in this case, we're going to be rampaging Scarbrand because they do a rampage. So Khorne suffering a little bit of its own medicine right here. and we have a nice 3v1. Azazel is obviously a really powerful fighter as well. If he's not being focused, Demon Blade active, he's discouraging Scarbrand's leadership. Scarbrand's at 10 leadership, and look how quickly we take 6,000-7,000 HP off this character. And because of the discourage from the Demon Blade, he's crumbling it even quicker, right? So we get a huge pick there, but the value is kind of close. We are up by about 2,000. The middle fight, I decided to alpha strike it to see if I could just sweep him off the battlefield very quickly. But the Chaos Warriors of Khorne do dominate the basic Demonettes, and here we do have Fiends as well as Demonettes kind of stacked on one another. They're doing okay, but overall the Khornate forces here are fairly elite with what appears to be some Exalted Bloodletters, yes. And the high ground, our flank worked well. So we did get the devastating flanker, and now the Demonettes are going to be pouring down from the hills looking to swarm into the back of the Chaos Warriors. As far as Objective 3 goes, it's a pretty decisive fight. He does call out some anti-large via the Skull Crushers of Khorne, so clearly he's experimenting with some tools as well. But I mean, if these things were able to surround the Marquis of Masochism, you know, they could do okay, but against the rest of my army, they're honestly going to be a pretty poor choice. And now another wild unit's going to be coming out, Hellflayers. In theory and on stats, they should be very good. They move in, and that's some respectable damage against those two units there. You can see some serious bread gets buttered, and they're going to be retreating while Fleshhounds do move in. And I started to realize I couldn't win the middle fight. With the double cultist fighting, as well as the summons coming in and the Exalted Bloodletters that he does have mixed in, which I believe are right here, this wasn't going to be a winning engagement. So I'm like, okay, let's go back to the basics. The value is closing a little bit, which I don't like because I don't have healing. So this is actually like a true measure of the value. I was only up by 1,600, which is pretty insane considering I killed Scarbrand. So many of the trades in the middle went badly. Ultimately, I shouldn't have taken that trade. I should have waited until I could get a full collapse with these before I ended up taking the middle fight. But, you know, Slaanesh just wanted to get that action going real quick, and I did lose my tactical kind of advantage I had. Now, moving over here is going to be the Demonettes, very quick, 54 movement speed, and in theory, I can see them being used more in Slaanesh. I mean, they have good AP, they're fast, they hit hard, magic damage, of course, is relevant in a multitude of matchups, so just going to be moving there and trying to split him between 2 points. Using my rampages, the narcissism ability that I do have to snare down units. You can see the Fleshhounds are going to kind of poke over here. I don't think his intent was to fully charge. I think he just wanted to kind of see if he could get a freebie here. But I do use the narcissism ability, which is an army ability for Slaanesh, and it is going to be locking them in place. And now the Demonettes and the Keeper of Secrets going to be getting in there. And man, how terrifying would that be? That's pretty freaky. But it does charge in. Big damage, 470, and magic damage, so it has most of the answers you need against the demons. Charmed is active. The Exalted Demonettes do lower melee attack as well, which is super good. And I think that Exalted Demonettes in general are a unit that's really slept on, especially the ROR. Bringers of Beguilement, like most people will target them with magic, but against like Khorne, man oh man, they're going to get in there. So those Fleshhounds get wrecked pretty good. And in the middle, we do have our Bringers of Beguilement still fighting actually, which is insane. They ended up getting about 2,000 value, so they certainly paid for themselves. And up on the high ground, it looks like it is going to be some Fleshhounds moving in with some Chaos Warriors to support. But overall, the Demonettes here probably should be able to win this, and we will charge the Hellflayers back. Hellflayers, I don't know if I'm sold. They're so squishy. 26 melee defense and also only 40 armor, and you're paying like almost as much as a heavy war sled of Kissel, right? I mean, I guess, I don't know. What do they do better? 100 speed is something. They do have Devastating Flanker, and Soul Sent can be decent as well. And here, these Fleshhounds are going to be getting wrecked, but look how much damage I took there, just like charging in while supported by infantry. I just think the Slaanesh Chariots are a little bit too squishy, but that's why we play games like this, to experiment, right? So we did manage to snare down these Skull Crushers. They moved in, and I believe we rampaged them with something. It was Fascination, so it was the army ability from Slaanesh. So we get the pick on the Skull Crushers, which kind of reestablishes our value lead, because that's like a 1,700 gold pick. And now we're going to be retreating this way and just kind of bouncing around, taking advantage of the objectives wherever we can. But Khorne didn't hear no bell. They're still fighting pretty hard. More Demonettes have arrived. Their armor piercing, very useful against these mortal units, certainly paying big dividends. And, you know, Bloodletters aren't going to be super good here. Demonettes will outtrade Bloodletters head-to-head, I think. Although, I don't know, the bonus versus infantry might help. I'd have to do some testing on that. Demonettes are certainly going to be, I think, better overall in this matchup. Bloodletters are probably better in more matchups, but in this one, I think Demonettes have the edge, because their stats are pretty good. 42 and 38 against 34-26. Similar weapon strength, but the bonus versus infantry does reside with the Bloodletters as well as the HP advantage. So I don't know, Bloodletters might win that head up, but the fact that I have 54 speed and can usually get the advantageous engagements is going to be quite nice. So we have a bit of a pit fight here. It doesn't go super well, actually. The Marquis of Masochism gets beat up really bad by those cultists and by the hounds, and Professor Pone, very sneaky, did have Summon in the back pocket. So we get some Bloodletters out here, and Azazel uses the Tempter to give some ward save to the Marquis, but the Marquis is going to be fleeing the scene, but not before it takes some damage, and Pone does manage to rally some of the Skull Crushers, so they're going to be charging in there, and the old Marquis of Masochism is going to be having a relatively bad time. So we might be able to get away, but I end up just turning and fighting and trying to get what value I can, and realizing he's got a summon unit here and there's no sense in fighting, we're just going to be running and letting it wear off. Over in the middle, Demonettes and the Hellflayers just absolutely squash those Bloodletters. Hellflayers do okay damage, only about 500 value so far. It hasn't really had a good chance to shine. Khorne does have good mass. They have the Hounds and Minotaurs and various characters that are sizable. And now we're going to be isolating and picking things off. So kind of like in traditional RTS and domination mode, you can isolate and pick off reinforcements. So like in Age of Empires, if somebody's longbow rushing you, you can have some horsemen running in their path and just be picking off the reinforcements, so it's harder for them to press your base. And this is where you see traditional RTS kind of meet Total War a little bit, right? So the chariots move in, you run those bad boys over, and they just get absolutely grinded down. Probably not what you thought you were going to see today, but they get in, and yeah, that was not bad. I mean, they do magic damage, so in theory, really good against demonic infantry, but the Flesh Doggies, bit of a problem here. Going to be using Fascination to try and wear them down, and when demons crumble, man, oh man, do they crumble bad. That's going to be Unstable, Fascination doing 62 to 125 a second. As far as this objective goes, I saw the two characters here, and though they're good fighters, the Seekers of Slaanesh, if I get a full surround on them and then pop Hysterical Frenzy on them, I should be able to get it. So this is probably going to be GG at this point. We pretty much killed this entire army, and this is where you can see Azazel coming into play. So we pop his buffs. Hysterical Frenzy is active, so 92 melee attack, and we start really melting these guys. They go down very quickly, and when the Demon Blade is active, we bonk him on the head once. His leadership goes into the negative, which is great. You can also see the Domineering aura, so that is going to be the aura of Azazel. It's not super sauced right now. It's up to -4 at the moment, so you know, he's playing a demon army, so it doesn't proc as much because you need to lower leadership of things. We use Narcissism again to snare down the Flesh Hounds, but that's just going to be GG. It has been GG for a hot moment, but this is a interesting showcase of some of the demon units, right? We got to see the Hellflayer, the Demonettes, the Exalted Demonettes. Azazel also, I think, has some teeth. I think is discouraging, could be pretty backbreaking in some fights. Marquia Masochism was quite good. It got about 1800 value, and it had a snare and some game-changing engagements. And I like the basic Demonette units. You know, we only really see the Hellscourge Warriors, but if they ever were to get nerfed, you would need to maybe fall back on some of these, which is quite fun. So, yeah, 22 on that one, 1,200 on the one that had a bad fight. This one got 2,000. Basic Demonettes didn't trade quite as well. One of them ended up getting 1,200. Azazel, 21. I mean, not bad. Fiend's a little bit lackluster, but that's to be expected. And the Marquia Masochism did well, considering I blundered it a little bit. But you know, if we didn't pick off Scarbrand that early, it could have been a very tough game. We would have had to play way more cagey. But, you know, that's the thing. Slaanesh is really good at isolating and picking things off and rampaging them. So that was the strategy there. And he still got 1,200 value despite how, you know, quickly he died in the beginning. Obviously, some army composition stuff. Like, he was expecting the Hellscourge Warriors, it looks like. The Skull Crushers are probably just the one weak link in his build. Aside from that, I think it's formidable and decent. But these Skull Crushers just don't have too many applications. Although Chaos Knights of Slaanesh are kind of meta. People use them a lot. So ultimately, maybe they weren't the worst choice. All right, guys. GG, well played. See you next time. And we'll be back with some sweat soon.